G'day guys, Justin here, coming to you with a final NBA regular season video. This one, the summary for the 2018 NBA playoffs, the Eastern Conference Finals, the Western Conference Finals, and the four-game sweep, the NBA Finals. So without further ado, let's get into it. As we can see in the Eastern Conference Finals, it was the second-seeded Boston Celtics taking on the fourth-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers, who managed to get a 7-game victory, and the MVP of that series was LeBron James. LeBron had 33.6 points, 9 rebounds, 8.4 assists per game, 1.1 steals and blocks per game, with a massive 5.7 turnovers, so certainly negating a lot of his defensive and passing work there. Shooting from the field, or 5 feet out, depends which way you look at a shot chart. 52.4 from the field, he gets to the hoop, no doubt about it. 40.9 from 3, very interesting. His jump shot was pretty much falling for most of the playoffs. We'll get to that. And 62.9% from the free throw line. Not what you want to see. As I've said, LeBron should be a guy who's an 80% free throw shooter. There's no excuses to it. The Cavs won game 3, 4, 6, games 3, 4, 6, and 7. In game 3, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks on 3 turnovers, 66.7 from the field, 100% from deep, and 80% from the stripe. Probably his best all-around game in that series from an efficiency standpoint. When you move on to game 4, despite the 44 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals, he did have 7 turnovers, shot 25% from 3, and under 70% from the free throw line. However, you'll notice that he got his 44 points reasonably efficient from the field at 60.7%. Game 6, another big game, one of those new stats that they're trying to bring up, and that's the near triple-double. 46 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, and a block on 3 turnovers. So not too bad at all. This was crucial. If Boston was going to win that series, they had to win that game, and they certainly didn't. Although it is to be said that Game 7 on the road for Cleveland was going to be a challenge, considering Boston hadn't lost at home or playoffs. So you had 3, as I mentioned, 46, 11, and 9, 3 steals and a block on 3 turnovers. 51.5 from the field and 71.4 from 3. Good efficiency, that's what you want to see. But 63.6 from the free throw line, very much to be desired. In Game 7, he closed it out, 35 points, 15 rebounds, and one of those, again, the new stat and the new hot take in basketball at the moment, the near triple-double with the 9 assists, 2 blocks, and I'm going to suggest he had one of the newest hot takes that I've got, a near quadruple-double with 8 turnovers. So he was proving costly. His passing was almost negated, particularly with no defensive effort on ball. 50% from the field, he got the job done. 37.5. That's pretty much where he's been shooting for most of his the last few seasons. And 72.7 from the free throw line. Again, I want to see improvement there. Only one shooting performance where I'd sit there and say it was elite. And as far as an all-around game, would be that 27, 5, and 12. Did have a couple of near triple-doubles, a couple of 40-point games. But you have to look, he did have a lot of areas that needed some improvement there. But no doubt about it, LeBron James was the MVP for Cleveland in their Eastern Conference Final victory, which put the Cavs as the first team, as the first team into the NBA Finals, which were, something to see, but we'll get to that. In the Western Conference Finals, it was a tough 7-game series, but the Golden State Warriors, the number 2 ranked Golden State Warriors, defeated the number 1 ranked Houston Rockets 4-3, and Kevin Durant was the MVP of that series for mine. As you can see there, 30.4 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game, 0.3 steals, 0.9 blocks, 1.9 turnovers. Had one of arguably his worst series against Houston, which is saying something there. 46.1 from the field to be desired for a guy who's a consistent 50% shooter. 39.6, that's about right. 88.5 from the free throw line, that's about right as well. Defensive numbers certainly slacking off. They managed to get the victory in games 1, 3, 6, and 7. In game 1, 37 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assists, 1 block and 1 turnover, so probably a little bit of work defensively there, and probably wanted to contribute in some other areas. However, it does need to be proven that Kevin Durant's method of winning is scoring the basketball. So how can you fault a plan that works? 51.9 from the field, 50% from deep, and 100% from the stripe. His most overall efficient shooting game for the series, and that showed right there. Game 3, 25.6 rebounds, 6 assists. So, see, all of a sudden he knocks his points back. Defense again, probably to be desired, but certainly not proving to be his most effective way of scoring. Getting the job done. 47.4% from the field, 37.5% from deep, 100% again from the free throw line. So can't really fault his effort from deep. Would like to have seen the efficiency certainly up from the field. There's no reason Durant isn't a 50% field shooter. Game 6, 23.7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block and 1 turnover, 35.3 from the field. He played terribly when you look at it like this. 20% from 3 and 71.4 from the stripe. This was the game that Houston really needed to close out on. There was the potential for them to go ahead to the NBA Finals here, but no Chris Paul, certainly proving to be somewhat costly, and it would force a Game 7, which the Warriors would win. With Durant having a pretty decent game himself. 34 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks, and only 2 turnovers. So contributed on both ends in an all-around sense. 52.4 from the field, that's good to see. 45.5 from three-point land, also good to see. However, 70% from the free throw line, a little to be desired. Durant's a guy who should be an 85% free throw shooter. So he was the MVP of that series for me. It loomed as the fourth time ever, that these two teams would face each other consecutively in the NBA Finals, and the first time ever in any of the 4 major American sports that the same two teams would play off for the championship, whether it be in the World Series, the Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl, or the NBA Finals. So, well, it was a hell of an anticipation, hell of a matchup. You've got a guy who was perceived to have had his best season ever versus a guy who last year essentially averaged 36 and 10 on 56% shooting on him. So it was going to be interesting to see how the series went, and I don't think anyone was really shocked when they saw what happened. And the NBA Finals was nothing short of an absolute rout. Golden State, the second-ranked West team, at 58 wins, defeated the fourth-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers at 50 wins. And, yeah, they've swept them 4-0. Durant winning the Finals MVP. Probably could have been Curry, probably should have been Curry. But nonetheless, it proved once again that LeBron's direct opponent won for their 4th Finals MVP. Durant winning back-to-back Finals MVP, the 6th man to ever win back-to-back Finals MVPs, as far as MVP scoring titles and Finals MVPs. Him and I believe as far as scoring titles and Finals MVPs, it's him and Michael alone in that conversation. But yeah, he's in an elite class of his own. The Warriors winning their 3rd championship in 4 years, joining the Celtics as the only team in history to have won 3 championships in 4 straight finals appearances. Of course, they managed the Celtics to win 9 of 10. But Kevin Durant was voted the Finals MVP, the direct opponent of LeBron James, the 4th time LeBron has actually conceded a Finals MVP to his direct opponent. And it can even be argued that with the amount of times he guarded Tony Parker in 2007, that it's a 5th. But we'll definitely look at it as a 4th. 3 of those in the last 4 years, 4 of those in the last 5 years. The only one he didn't concede was the one he won, which is a real blight when you look at it. But as we have a look here, Kevin Durant with the MVP, no doubt about it. 28.8 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, 7.5 assists per game, 0.8 steals per game, 2.3 blocks per game, 2.3 turnovers, 52.6 from the field, 40.9 from deep, and 96.3 from the free throw line. Durant with back-to-back 50, 40, 90 shooting efforts in the NBA Finals. I believe his NBA Finals averages now over the last 2 years have seen him average essentially 33, 9 and 6, a steal and a block pretty much a game. Yeah, 50, 40, 90 shooting. If he does that again and has a similar series in the, if he does that again next year and the Warriors win the ring, I'm going to have to go as far to say that he may just be the most dominant small forward in the history of the NBA Finals. And yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to, deny a guy who wins 3 straight NBA Finals MVPs. I mean, the only 2 players to ever do that were the great Michael Jordan, who did it twice, and Shaquille O'Neal. And when you look at Durant's legacy of 4 scoring titles, a league MVP, and 3 finals MVPs, I mean, who's to say he can't build on that, scoring titles and the MVPs? Yeah, it's pretty hard to not rank this guy up there as one of the greatest to ever play the game. I mean, you've only got to look at these numbers here. He essentially only had 1 really bad game out of all of them. Game 1, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. There's no doubt about it. Steph Curry probably outplayed him here. 1 steal and 3 blocks on 1 turnover. You'll notice here with Durant. Durant is one of those guys who doesn't turn the basketball over very often. 36.4 from the field, 14.3 from deep, and 90% from the free throw line. It should speak volumes here that Durant, despite shooting under 20%, well, under 15% in one game and not making a 3 in another, still managed to shoot almost 41% from deep. That's just how much of a run and how much of a purple patch he's been in these NBA Finals. He just really seems to lift his game against LeBron James. Game 2, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists this time, with 2 blocks, missing the steal there, and 2 turnovers, and a tremendous shooting night. I mean, he was better, much better than Game 1, despite what the box score probably tells you there. But I mean, he essentially doubled his field goal from 36.4 to 71.4, 66.7 from deep, and 100% from the free throw line. I mean, do I need to say anything else? Then in Game 3, he had an all-time great game in Game 3. And let's not take away from LeBron's 51, 8 and 8 in Game 1. The sheer matter of fact is that LeBron James did nothing in overtime. And if LeBron James is really the GOAT and really this guy who is having this great all-time season, and it's his best season ever, and he's the greatest athlete to have ever lived, and you can ride with your king and King James and whatever you're not, he would have done more than score 2 points in overtime. Anyway, in Game 3, it has to be noted that Steph Curry was the second highest scorer with 11 points, and that was the lowest scoring second option in a winning NBA Finals game in the shot clock era. And the shot clock was brought in the 54-55 season. If we go back and actually have a look at the history of the game, there have only been 5 games where someone has had 11 points or less as the second scoring option on a team, and surprisingly, still managed to get the win. I'll just get these numbers up here momentarily, but it's just something that a lot of people don't seem to realise just how dominant something like this is. I mean, we're talking about the shot clock, literally. In 55 years, no one has won a game like this with a second option like that. Now, I know a lot of people are going to sit there and go, well, okay, it's Curry. He's a former 2-time MVP, a unanimous MVP. Could arguably be a 2-time Finals MVP too, if you really want to boost the case. He's just won his 3rd ring as a key cog, as arguably the leader of 2 of those 3 championship teams. A lot of people can make a case for D Wade being a crucial reason why they won in 2012. He had the better 4th quarters out of everyone on that side, but enough about that. We'll go through and have a bit of a look here, and these are just staggering to think about when you look at it. I mean, the only other time prior to Curry again, Curry had 11, while Durant had, as I'm just going to go over now. Durant had 43 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal and a block, and 3 turnovers. Shot 65.2 from the field, 66.7 from deep, 100% from the stripe. But this was by far his most important and crucial game, arguably the biggest game of his career, and arguably, really, when you go back and look at it, one of the most vital games in the history of the NBA. The last time a second scoring option scored 11 or less before Curry was Game 4 of the 1953 NBA Finals, where George Mikan had 27 and Vern Mickelson had 11. So this is before the shot clock, which, mind you, was brought in to help George Mikan, because teams would start freezing the ball against George Mikan, so play couldn't continue on and they could win a game 16-18. 18-16, whatever. Before that, prior to that, was Game 4 of 1952 for New York, getting the win there. Connie Simmons with 10 points. Alfred Maguire with 10 points. Then, as we continue back through, the only other 2 games outside of those ones, as mentioned, were Game 4 of 1948, where Paul Hoffman had 27 and Dick Schultz had 11. And going back just one more game up before that, Game 3 of the 1948 Finals saw Connie Simmons top score with 14 and 4 other players have 9. They are the only 5 games in history where someone has had that much of a poor second scoring option and still won the game. So unbelievable what Durant did there. And I mean, people just need to realise, if you haven't watched MJ, you haven't watched any of MJ's finals games, haven't watched MJ carry the balls, someone like a Bird when he put the team on their back, someone like, someone like a Shaq when he put the Lakers on their back, this is what it was like. This was all time. Again, not taking away from LeBron's 51 points, but when it come to crunch time, when it come to getting the job done, the man didn't step up. Durant on the road in a series that really could have been 1-1 at this point. Probably could have even been, if Cavs had made the plays, LeBron had stepped up, could have even been 2-1 to Cleveland at this point. Steps up and puts the team on his back. Curry with essentially the worst support for any winning NBA Finals game in the history of the shot clock, and definitely one of the 5 worst supporting acts by a second option in NBA Finals history. Durant steps up and says, "Give me the ball. I want the shot. I'm taking the shots." 43, 13, and 7. Unbelievable. And then Game 4 really had nothing else to prove. And a lot of people would make the case that those first 2 games were certainly Steph Curry's games, and they're the reason why they won. Durant having that big game and Curry really costing himself in the third game is essentially what I think hurt him. But there's no different to that than in 2015, where Curry had one bad shooting game against Matthew Dellavedova, and made Matthew Dellavedova earn a massive contract somehow. And that's what cost him a Finals MVP to Andre Iguodala. But Durant, after halftime, essentially just gave up the ball, didn't want anything of it, and still managed to get a triple-double without trying. Now, considering his opposite number is meant to be a triple-double king, and he's a points, rebounds, and assists guy and a numbers guy, then, well, surely you can imagine if Kevin Durant wanted to do what LeBron did. You have to imagine he'd be able to do the same, considering he didn't even try in this one. It's Game 4. He closes out with a 20-point triple-double. 20 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, a steal, and 3 blocks with 2 turnovers. 41.2 from the field, not a good look. Didn't make a 3, certainly not a good look, but converted all of his free throw attempts, and Durant walked away with the Finals MVP and was quoted as saying that none of them actually cared who won the Finals MVP because they won, and they're happy that they've won. Back-to-back Finals MVPs, back-to-back daggers in Game 3 from essentially the same spot, with LeBron James guarding him in one. He didn't want that happening again. He didn't need that blemish on the legacy. He backed off him, switched out, on a screen that was no touch on. Bang, Durant hits the shot. Kevin Durant, the LeBron James killer. Kevin Durant now, the 2-1 record in the NBA Finals versus LeBron. Joining Tim Duncan, who also has a 2-1 record against LeBron in the NBA Finals. And Steph Curry now with a 3-1 record against LeBron in the NBA Finals. All of Steph's rings coming at the expense of LeBron James. So this Warriors team is certainly a good team. They're one of the better teams that the league has seen. I'm not going to put them up there in the great category. They've been very good. A three-peat may change that. I mean, to win 4 championships in 5 years, again, the only team to do that was the Celtics of the 60s. I mean, they were stacked. Heinsohn, Cousy, Havlicek, Jones, some guy called Bill Russell apparently wasn't too bad. Yeah, you've only got to really look and see what kind of dominance the league has seen in the last couple of years. With this Warriors team, and particularly the individual dominance of Kevin Durant, I think the league needs to be worried, particularly in the next 3 to 4 years. He's only sitting at, I think Durant's about 30. I'll double check that. Kevin Durant's around 30 years of age. You've got to only assume that he's going to be getting better with age, the way he's going. Now, again, it'll be foreseen to how far he goes and how great he goes. Durant will be 30 by the time that the 18-19 season begins. He is only 29 at the moment, but you'd have to assume he's got another 5 years, 6 years left in the tank before he really starts to decline. Who knows what he can do in a team like that? Who knows what he can do? But there is certainly a prospect here that Kevin Durant, with another really good finals run, a great finals run, can cement himself as the greatest small forward in NBA Finals history. And I mean, he's we're looking at possibly one of the 25 greatest players right now, let alone one of the potential top 15, top 10 players of all time. So Kevin Durant with the back-to-back finals MVP here for 2018. And thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching the video. That's been me for the regular season. I thank everyone who's subscribed and watched my videos. Yeah, we'll be doing a bit of off-season stuff, a bit of reflective stuff, a bit of comparative stuff, a bit of news updates. We know the big conversation is going to be where the King, I mean, he's turned into nothing more than the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at this point. Sorry, Will Smith, you don't deserve that comparison. LeBron's clearly below you as far as that's concerned. But yeah, so we'll be doing a bit of off-season news. I'll be doing some more subject videos. If you guys have a video you want to run by me, then yeah, just mention it. I'm happy to talk about it. So again, thank you very much for watching the video. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the conference and NBA Finals, who you thought was the Finals MVP. What do you think about LeBron? What do you think about Kevin Durant? What do you think about Steph Curry? All that kind of stuff. So hit me up on there. Subscribe to the channel for more videos in the off-season. And more importantly, hit me up on Twitter, Justin_G_Brian. Always talking sports, always talking life over there. So get on over and enjoy the conversation. Thanks again, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.